Well, hello there. Have you ever wondered why England starts with an E, France starts with an F, and Germany starts with a G? Me neither. Let's move on. Just a little humor there to start us off. Hello, everyone, and welcome to History 4A, uh, the online version at Sierra College. Western civilization from prehistory to roughly 1500. I am your host and tour guide, Professor Christian Jardine, but you may call me Professor Christian Jardine. Just a little more humor there. I'm reaching out today to welcome you, welcome, and to provide a bit of introduction to the course itself. This should help familiarize you with some of the basics of and about the class ahead uh, uh, before we begin. Uh, I'm going to begin with just a tad bit about myself, not because you are interested, probably not, but because it helps us to know at least a little about each other uh, to make all of this work in an online format. I am from the lovely city of Stockton, California. This is the bio part. Yes, you can make all the jokes you like about Stockton, but that's where I'm from. I was raised the only child of a high school teacher and a hairdresser, lived in a nice, comfortable, cozy little middle class neighborhood, went to nice schools, so I had a blessed childhood and early life. Not that it's been bad since. My ethnic and cultural background is Italian Catholic on my father's side and German Jewish Protestant on my mother's, though I was raised in a primarily secular household environment. I played competitive tennis and piano all through my childhood and have continued both since. My other great hobby is, you guessed it, reading, which I do copiously. As far as professionally, I hold 2 degrees, a bachelor's and a master's in history from Sacramento State University. I've been teaching at the college level for 25 years. Wow. And for all that time, I've worked for Sierra College, Woodland Community College, and American River College. I'm like a cat, that the stray cat that shows up at your door and you just kind of keep feeding it and it keeps showing up. So they keep offering me classes and I keep showing up semester after semester for 25 straight years. I've taught sporadically at Sac State as well, but mostly at the 3 colleges I just mentioned before that. I teach a large variety of courses, though primarily I teach both halves of the U.S. History Survey course, and the Western Civ Survey course, one of which you're in now, and the World History Survey course. So I do those 3 or 6, divided into 2 pieces each. The I'll skip that part. So I guess that's enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me? Sorry, I have to be a little bit sillier. I can't get through this as easily. More fun this way, right? Laugh at the professor's jokes from day one. Get in the habit of that. It'll help your grade. Also a joke. So, if you're willing, and if you're not, that's fine. Shoot me an email on Canvas or my campus email address, and tell me a little bit about yourself. Keep it short. I don't want a book length, autobiography there, but things like why you're in school, what your life goals are, what your career goals are, why you're taking this specific class, etc. That'll help me to get to know you, like I've tried to start by letting you get to know me at least a little bit, a tiny bit. So let's talk now about what you have to do in this class to get through it, the work involved. And I'm going to keep it very brief. All of these things will be dealt with in more detail as the class gets underway and you start going through the introductory materials beyond this. The course will include regular PowerPoint lectures, which is the primary vehicle I use to impart knowledge and information to you, discussion groups and web-based assignments, online, of course, and what I call mini exams. I mean mini, not many as in a lot, though there are a lot of them. there'll be 7 mini exams. We will have a 1-hour meeting once a week on ConferZoom. Don't panic. Don't freak out. It's not mandatory. It's optional. Since this is an asynchronous course, I can't make you show up to a live meeting at any time. So it's optional and you don't have to show up. But also, in addition to the live version, there'll be a recorded version of it that'll be available on ConferZoom. So if you can't or don't want to show up to one or more or all of our weekly hour-long meetings, you can watch the recorded version of it. And if you come to the live version of it or the recorded version of it, either way, in both instances, ConferZoom does keep track of who's signed in, so you will get extra credit each time that you attend. A small little bit, but it adds up after a while. But just to reiterate, to make clear, this isn't required. This is optional. What will we do in those class meetings, live or on recording? It'll probably be more or less a study session. Like me helping you to study for the upcoming exam, study, a particular chapter, unit in the class 1 week after the next. Also, there are no midterms in the class, no final exam, just the 7 mini exams. So that means there's no material that you have to come back to. You can thank me later. So you don't have to study, go all the way back and study the first chapters of the book when we get to chapter 7. None of it is comprehensive. Ironically, since it's a history class, we don't look back after we get through material and test you on it once. We move onward. Once the class goes fully live on Canvas, meaning once everything is up and running, you're going to want to then familiarize yourself with Canvas. I don't mean that you don't already know how to use Canvas. Most of you do. If you do not a problem. Feel free to email me, and I can certainly help you to figure it out. But what I mean for most of you is you need to know how I've sort of used Canvas, because every instructor can and does use it slightly or much differently. Some of us use some features and not others. Sometimes we use features differently. So you're going to want to, ahead of time, this is really important. Know where to find things on Canvas, where I put things, how things are organized and laid out there. If you don't do this ahead of time, it's going to make things more difficult on you and put more stress on you when you're trying to then start to do assignments and study for exams. At the same time, you're trying to figure out where things are. So do yourself a favor and do it ahead of time. All the introductory materials from today, through what I'm about to talk about now, is admittedly super boring, right? The syllabus, all this stuff is dull, but you need to do it really if you want to get an A. I always have some students, I'm sure, that can not look at any of the introductory stuff and get an A, but unless you're sure that's you, I wouldn't take that chance. So the most important place on Canvas in my class is modules, which is one of the menu items on the left-hand side of Canvas. I usually put it near the top left. So you want to think in this class, modules. We'll be going back to it. You will be going back to it again and again. And to start with, you should look at the first module at the top, which is called Introductory Module. And everything there is kind of in the order that you should kind of look at things. And there's some short videos that explain how to do certain assignments and how to study for exams and what the exams are like, et cetera, et cetera. All this stuff is in writing in the introductory module as well. So it seems like a bit of overkill. Perhaps it is, since there's videos that basically say the same thing as the written stuff there. But it doesn't hurt, I think, to make it sink into our brains by kind of through repetition. Plus, some of the things that I say in the short videos, aren't said in writing, and vice versa. So again, as dull and monotonous as it is, get through all of the introductory materials. I can't stress that enough if you want to do well in the class. Let's see, I don't want to skip anything, so I'm looking at my own little notes here. At least I was. Bear with me. Technical difficulties. Please stand by. So after the introductory module, the next one down is syllabus module. And yes, you guessed it, it includes the syllabus, which you also want to read in full. So that you don't get blindsided by something that you didn't know was in the class a month, 2 months in. You want to know what you're getting yourself into from day one or before day one. The third module down is called the web-based assignments module. And this one is imperative to look at ahead of time because the web-based assignments, and there's more than one in this class, oftentimes is one of the things people do not look at ahead of time. And then they email me and say, hey, I got a late start on the web-based assignment, and I don't even know where it is. I don't know how to find the website itself. I don't know where the assignment is. I don't know what to do. Go to modules, find the web-based assignment module, and it's all right there at your fingertips. So those three modules at the top are really kind of the keys to getting your bearings in this class before and as we begin. Below that, there are modules for each week, 1 through 8 or 16, depending on which class you are in. I have 2 4As that are different formats this semester. But if you go to that every week, it gives you a rundown of what chapter to read. The PowerPoint lectures are there. You just click on them and you're there. Homework assignments, exams, etc. So modules, modules, modules. What is the subject matter of the course? Well, we know it's Western civilization, but what the heck is that? It's mostly European history after the first few units. Prehistory takes us back to the region that's usually called Mesopotamia. So basically the ancient Near East, or it's now the Middle East. So there's some units early on that take place in that part of the world. But pretty quickly we shift, kind of move successively northwest to the Eastern Mediterranean, ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Then eventually it's sort of to Italy and Northern Europe, Germany, France, England, into the European Middle Ages, Renaissance, and Reformation. So this takes us up to about 1500, and we'll get a little past that into the scientific revolution of the next century, but we won't cover that century in full. The class provides a narrative overview of some of the most significant political developments, political history in ancient, medieval, and Renaissance Europe, and how they relate to some of the larger social forces, social history, broadly construed, of the eras in question. For instance, we'll take a look at important political events such as the Battle of Marathon in ancient Athens, the investiture controversy in Germany and northern Italy, or Italy in the Middle Ages. We'll also spend plenty of time looking at the social concomitants and ramifications of such events, like the Battle of Marathon, such as how it affected people's everyday lives and patterns of thinking, along with and partly because of such phenomenon. We'll also look at the role of powerful or significant individuals in history, like Julius Caesar, the most famous figure today from ancient Rome, and Elizabeth I, the great Queen of England during the Shakespearean era, the Renaissance era. We'll look at the role of leaders like that in shaping the past through in the important decisions they made, not always good ones, good and bad, a mix. We'll also pay close attention to how social groups like women, Jews, slaves, farmers fared in European society. It probably won't surprise you to learn that things were often difficult for these groups and others like them. So we'll see how power sort of came down on their heads much of the time, which was often not pretty, but also how they were able to make life worth living, or at least bearable, by taking action, showing agency, in their own right. Not to be left out also, we'll deal with the important role of underlying impersonal forces in history, something historians are quite keen on these days for good reason, like the impact of changes in technology on European society from the Middle Ages on. Also, like the economic and social consequences of the Black Death of the same period. From there, let's talk about sort of how we approach all of this subject matter, this massive material going through actual millennia of time. Students will be asked, you guys, to acquire the foundational detailed knowledge in Western civilization that is necessary to become proficient in the study of the subject, since history is an empirically based discipline. This means a solid grounding in events and facts, the who, what, where, when of Western civilization, including, yes, names, dates, and places. I know, yuck. So to avoid that question later on, yes, we do need to know, memorize some names, dates, places. I don't emphasize it as much as some instructors do, but there's no way around it. To sort of get to more complicated stuff, and we have to have sort of the basic fundamentals down. By the way, you have to memorize a giant chunk of stuff in any course you take in any subject. It's not unique to history alone, though people think that. All of this will be done, however, to pay more attention to a further level of complexity in the subject, meaning that we'll be asking questions from the base of knowledge we acquire, the who, what, when. We'll be asking questions about the past, historical inquiry, the why and how of history. We will be interpreting history, illustrating how it can be a useful tool in understanding the present, even the future, predicting the future, though historians are notoriously bad at it, and drawing conclusions about historical phenomena, trying also to understand both continuity and change through the various periods studied in the class. In other words, a strenuous effort will be made to help students make the connection between the important specific details of history and the critical thinking and analysis that allow us to put them into a larger perspective. We will try to see how the particular and the general must be woven together to get a clear understanding of the past and inquiry into it. Aiding us in in these endeavors, we will make consistent use of primary source documents. What the heck are those? Primary source documents, a primary source is anything written down from a particular time period that survived. So when we study ancient Rome, and we will, primary sources are anything that was written down during the period of ancient Rome, in Rome, or as part of the Roman Empire, from a scrap of paper to graffiti on walls to the famous writings of Julius Caesar, and on and on. If it was written down then, it's a primary source document now, if it survived, of course, and wasn't burned or lost or something. Our secondary textbook is actually about primary source documents and gives us chapter after chapter excerpts from them. So it will help us to understand what they are. Our homework assignments will basically be based on that book and constant looks at primary sources. We also will learn how to employ and use some of the conceptual tools that historians use to understand the past. Things like the use and sometimes abuse of theory. Theory can be quite valuable in history as well as many other subjects, but it can be misused as well. We'll look at things like the importance of context in history, the all-important context. We'll also look at the difficulties in achieving objectivity, etc., and many other aspects of at least the basic methodology and again, conceptual tools necessary to understand this subject. I also feel it necessary here, lastly, to lay out the basics of my teaching philosophy from the get-go. I see my job as teaching you history, not teaching you what to think about history, to assist you in improving your ability to think about serious and important subjects, but not what to think about those subjects. Therefore, I try to be as objective as I can. I'm not perfect, but I try to be as objective as I can. And I try to present the subject from various viewpoints, not just one, not my own. Due to this, I furthermore stay away from making moral judgments about the past, which isn't to say that it's not appropriate for you to do so, but that my job, as I see it, is to give you many ways to see things and let you use your reasoning and analytical skills to draw your own conclusions on such issues. I do not like the idea of alienating any student, anyone in the class, whatever their political views and values, way of seeing the world. So I don't show favoritism towards one political party or one set of political views, values, or another. Uh, um, I stay away from that. All viewpoints are welcome in my class within reason, within basic doctrines of fairness and etiquette. And so I welcome different viewpoints, but I refrain from expressing my own views for the most part. I do from time to time play devil's advocate and ask one or more students constructively critical questions, like we'll learn Socrates did brilliantly, to get students to at least entertain the possibility that, heaven forbid, there might be ways to look at something or things other than the way they already do. This will not necessarily reflect my own viewpoint, though it may not, depending on what we're talking about. That being said, I am human. I do certainly have my own perspective and views on things, and every so often do interject my own way of seeing something. More specifically, I feel it necessary to make a specific comment about Western civilization as a subject to be studied itself. Consistent with the philosophy I've just talked about, I look at Western civ with both a glass, sorry, I haven't been drinking, I swear, a glass half empty and a glass half full approach, meaning there are all too many horrific misdeeds done by Europeans to other peoples and to groups even within European society throughout the millennia, such as slavery, imperialism, the Holocaust, and on and on and on. A lot of ugliness, evil deeds done by the Europeans. And we must and should cover them, deal with them thoroughly, and we will. However, as is true of all civilizations in the past, the good comes with the bad comes with the good. So we will also look at laudable achievements, both individual and social, like the brilliance of the Greek playwrights and historians, philosophers, the early mathematical achievements in the Muslim world, etc., etc. Europeans certainly committed more than their share of evils, both at home and as abroad, to be sure. And again, to repeat, we must scrutinize these openly, honestly, and thoroughly within the limits of a one semester course. There's only so much we can do in 4.5 months. But we should not lose sight of the more edifying features of European history, as they require our attention as well to get a full picture of the subject at hand. In this way, we immerse ourselves in the full complexity of the subject, looking at it kind of in a three-dimensional way instead of a one-dimensional way, which is necessary if we're to truly understand European society, Western civilization, just like it would be to understand any other civilization or people or time and place in the past. With this introduction complete, I look forward to meeting you all, so to speak, and hope you will join me in what can and should be, I said should be, a fascinating journey through many centuries of European history. Until then, I bid you adieu. Adieu.